This is some ideas on making gear wheels in Gimp. Maybe not for absolute beginners, but it uses all the selection tools, so it's very good practice. There's this old tutorial in Gimp user group which uses an old version of Gimp and a version of Gfig that has this nice polar grid that isn't in the more recent versions, and using that polar grid you can make this very easily. You can make a nice toothed gear shape. So this is a little look at how you might make that shape. But first, times move on and there are scripts that will make gear shapes. This is one of them. Writes to a path, which is very nice. It gets something like that. But with all scripts you get what you're given, and I want something a little bit more rounded. Something that's going to have a shape roughly like that. So how can we do this? Well, there's a blank canvas and I put some guides on it, and you need to find these tools. This is a Gimp 2.7. Your Gimp might look a little bit different, but these are all standard parts of Gimp that you can find. The select tool and the modes in particular. We're going to use all the modes in the selection tools, and also these tick boxes for expanding from center and various fixed aspect ratios, sizes. Also a small brush, useful if you can resize a brush to a small size. Find the Paths tab and also the Layers tab. You can see we've only got a blank background here, and I'm going to rename this to Guide, because that's what we're going to make. Now then, first of all I'm just going to paint in a partial center line using the Gimp guides as an edge and a center point. Need this for a little later on with the Gfig tool, but first, using an elliptical select, we're on fixed center and fixed aspect ratio. I'm going to make this a regular size, say 450 by 450. Easier to remember than just making a random one. Now I'm going to stroke this, small size, can be any color you want, but we'll leave it as black. And I'm going to make a second circular selection. Inside this is a second guide, 400 maybe, a little bit small between them, make that 380 by 380, and that looks a bit. Stroke that one as well. Turn the selection off because we're going to go to our filters menu, render and Gfig, and we get this dialog up. Shows us what the canvas looks like. I'm going to use this tool here, the star tool, and we need more than 3 sides, something that'll go into 360 degrees, say 18. And to use the star tool, click in the center, drag it out, and I'm going to keep to that center line we made, so I get a star like that. Now go to the move a single point option, drag on the center radius point, center diameter point, until you get your star shape that's roughly symmetrical on the two circular guides, so it looks like that on the canvas. When you're happy with it, you can go into your layers and merge everything down, so we have just the one guide layer. And if we wanted a little less obtrusive, we can turn the opacity down as well. Now I'm going to make a new layer to work on. You should always have a working layer or two or more. And we could, using the paint brush and shift to constrain the lines, we could draw in a nice gear shape as the original tutorial. But what I want is something more around it, so I'm going to use this elliptical select, and looking at the properties of it, I'm going to expand from the center and have a fixed aspect ratio for this, because I want to draw a circular selection from the center out roughly midway between those guides, because I'm going to do a bit of measuring, so I don't really need to make a specific size. Looking at a quarter of this, we'll zoom in. First have a look at the modes. We were on the first mode there, the regular mode that you get by default, but this time I want to be on the second one. Add to the current selection. Notice it's assigned a key there, shift. But first I need a size for this selection, and I'm going to measure this the top point on that guide there. It came out at 29 pixels. So that's 29 by 29. Now if we click in the canvas, we get our selection there, and we can drag this around until the center is on that large circular selection, and we're between the pointy bits of the star. And we add to our selection like that. You might need to hold the shift key down. You might not. I've found, certainly one of my versions of Gimp, you needed to hold the shift key down. Now then, I'm going to make another measurement here. This is the remainder of it. That distance there, which at the bottom says 41.6 pixels, down next to the 200%. So I'm going to make this 42 by 42. And I'm going to use the third selection mode, which is subtract. And this is assigned a control key. So clicking in the canvas, we get our selection which we can drag out. I'm going to move it up between those spikes, keeping the center on the large circular selection. And we get that. Need that little bit there, but we only need 1/4 of our circle, because we'll do a little bit of duplicating in a minute. And if I stroke that, that's what we have at the moment as a selection. Now then, I haven't finished with selections, because I want to use the rectangular selection, and the mode is going to be the very last mode, which is intersect. I didn't show it there, but I'll point that out in a minute. and I'm going to drag from the center right away out to the corner, and we get that as a selection. And the mode I was in was this one, which is intersect. Now I can turn our selection to a path there in the select menu. There's our path. You can see it's 1/4 of the full circle. Turn the selection off. Important to turn the selection off for this next bit, otherwise it won't work. I'm going to duplicate the path using a right click, or I can use that little icon there. So we now have two selections, and I'm going to flip this one, use the flip tool. Checking on the flip tool, make sure you're on a path, that one. And horizontal is okay. So click on the canvas and you can see that selection flips over. I can now merge them, right click and select merge. So we now have half a circle. Same procedure, duplicate it, go to our flip tool. This time we want to be vertical. Click in the canvas, it flips over, right click and merge the visible paths. Now I've got a complete circle as a path, and what I'm going to do now is save this so I can use it in other images. And to save a path, that's what it looks like. It's still got a couple of center lines, but it doesn't matter, because if I right click here and go down to export path, I can save it as an SVG file. Type in a name, something SVG, save it, and that saves it, and we can import that back into another image when we need to. What I'm going to do now is I'll just put that path to a selection, because the original tutorial made it into a sort of 3D image, so I'm going to transform this, making sure we're in the selection mode. And I'm running out of time here, but what I'm going to do is duplicate this a few times. I'm going to fill this with increasing shades of grey, and for each layer I'm going to nudge the selection using the keyboard cursor keys. I'm going to nudge the selection down 4 pixels down and 4 pixels to the left, and each layer I'm going to make progressively darker until we come to the very last bit when I'm going to put a gradient on it, and this kind of fakes in a 3D effect, and that's our finished graphic image.